Okay, go. Kia ora everyone, I'm Annabelle Creswell. Welcome to AI in Practice, a day in the life of a criminal lawyer. I'm just a little bit about us first. I'm Annabelle Creswell and I'm co-hosting with Samudu Thode at the moment. We are both barristers based in Auckland, Whangarei and Rotoroa respectively. I'm head of a chambers, Pahutakawa Chambers. Samudu has her own firm. And we are both members of the Criminal Bar Association, and we also co-host a podcast together, which is sponsored by LexisNexis, which I think is why we've been asked to do this seminar today. So that's the introduction to the two co-hosts today. Samudu, would you like to introduce who else is here?
We've got Alistair Fernandez on the screen that you can see, and Alistair's a product manager for LexisNexis. He is responsible for products like Prodigy, which we're going to talk about today, Lexis Plus, Lexis Advanced, and Argument Analyzer. We'll go through some of these features, and Alistair is going to monitor the Q&As, so feel free to use that function and put any questions that you've got, and we'll answer them at the end of that. And also online, we've got Drew Laidlaw on there. He's a training consultant. So Drew is going to go through some of the questions that Annabelle and I had about Prodigy and LexisNexis. So he's going to show us how to do some research, draft some letters, help with submissions, and take us through this webinar.
At the outset, we just need to acknowledge safety guidelines and judicial guidelines relating to AI. So in other words, being careful with your use of AI. We will make these guidelines available to those who don't have them, but they should have come up now for you to all look at. These are the guidelines that have been produced by Courts of New Zealand for judges, judicial officers, tribunal members and judicial support staff. I had to have a look to see if that includes lawyers as well, but I assume so. But certainly all of these guidelines should cover anyone using AI to do legal work. And you can just have a look through there. The ones that are the top lines of each page that are highlighted in brown show things like, before using Gen AI chatbots, ensure you have a basic understanding of its capabilities, and then looking at confidentiality, don't upload confidential documents. Some AI tools are more safe than others, but you have to be mindful about privilege. Can we flick on to the next slide? These will be made available to you. But they do cover the fact that, and it is common sense, but you always have to check. So you never quote a case without checking that case actually exists, because it is a developing thing. I was going to flick through all of the rules briefly, but it's gone away. So we'll just move on, and we will have questions about those at the end and make that document available for those who haven't seen it. Samudu, I think you've got some housekeeping.
I do. Now, first of all, everybody should know that this webinar is being recorded. There's a little red button that says recording. The recording will be shared after the webinar, along with some of the materials that we're going to refer to. This webinar should run for about an hour, so we're hoping to finish just before 2 o'clock for those of us that need to get back to work. Like I said before, please use the Q&A function. Alistair's going to be monitoring that. If there's anything that can be answered in the chat function, he'll do that. But otherwise, we'll go through questions at the end. You will get your 1 hour attendance certificate for CPD, which will be emailed through to you at the end, as well as, like I said, any other documents that we refer to. Everybody is on mute, just so we don't have any background noise, but the chat function should work for everybody. If it does cut out, please log off and log back in, and the webinar should run smoothly. Now, Annabelle, do you want to tell everybody how this webinar came about?
Yes, so we rather than just another boring lecture on how to use a research tool, we just thought we've been asking these AI guys from LexisNexis about how we use it in real life, like how it comes up for us. And so, what Smudu and I did was sort of set out the life of a criminal lawyer and how it starts. You know, at the start of the day, somebody rings you, you're barely up, you've barely had your coffee, and someone's going, the police are at my house. Or can you take this case or whatever. So we started from there when you have to look up things really fast, and then going into the office, what you might have to look at, and then lunch break, got to look up something quickly for your hearing in the afternoon. And so we decided to find things that we do in the order that you kind of do it in a, not that there is ever a typical day of a criminal barrister, but in the order of the chaos that are our lives and the kind of things that we need to look up, sometimes on the fly, sometimes really quickly, and sometimes when you've got a little bit of time and you can look at AI doing things like comparing two documents or drafting a letter for us, because we can now do more than just, hey, look up this case. Now turn that case into a letter of advice explaining to my client why he can't do that. So that's why we've got it in order. You're going to hear morning problem, midday problem, evening problem. So the various issues that could come up. So welcome to a day of problems.
Well, the morning problem, Drew, is that I'm on the way to work, and I've got a call from a client saying that they're at the prison and they've been arrested for trying to smuggle some drugs in. And they've said to me that they've been arrested by a prison guard. Now, my juniors aren't at work yet, so I can't do the usual give them a call and go, hey, can you look this up for me? So I have to look this up myself. Can you show us how we can look, or just very quickly, I want to know whether corrections officers or prison guards have arrest powers, because my client tells me that the police haven't shown up at the prison yet.
Great. Yeah, sure. Let's have a look at how we can use Protege to kind of ask those questions and look at the responses that it would give us in that kind of scenario. So my screen should be showing up now. And yeah, what you're all seeing, just really quickly, what you're seeing is Protege, which is, the name of our generative AI assistant. We're already in there. Along the top, you'll see these four key generative AI tasks, which we'll be looking at. So for this scenario, we could ask a legal question. So could be something like with your example around what were you kind of wanting to know exactly? It was around
Just
whether the corrections officers have arrest powers.
whether do corrections officers have arrest powers, and I want
Yeah.
to know under what legislation, if they do, under what legislation.
But Samudu is, people are commenting that Samudu is a bit quiet. So I'll just repeat what her issue was.
Mm.
She gets a phone call from a client who's been arrested at prison for trying to smuggle drugs into prison. And the client says, I've been arrested by a prison guard. The police aren't here yet. So the question from Samudu is, do corrections officers even have arrest powers?
Yeah, so that you could start with a prompt like this where I've just put in, do corrections officers have arrest powers? If so, list any relevant sections of legislation. And when you press enter, it runs the prompt. Protege, just really generally, without going into too much detail, Protege gathers relevant LexisNexis content, could be legislation, case law, commentary, and uses that as a basis of generating a response, which we'll start to see soon.
So does it reformulate the question in a way that AI can understand if you've just sort of typed it out the way that it's in your head?
Yeah, it will. I mean, we talk about like effective ways to prompt, but these large language models, these generative AI systems are getting really good at understanding your prompt, even if it's not exactly how it processes it. And yeah, that's what you might see sometimes when you enter in a prompt and it's generating. And this is what a response would look like. So it's sort of responded to that question. You'll see any hyperlinks through to the supporting content. So looks like it's referenced some sections of legislation, might have some links to commentary. And at the end of the response, you'll get that kind of list of supporting content, which you can review. And any of these, like you can click into. So say if I wanted to have a look at, you might want to go in and actually have a look at section 149, right? So you could click into that and it would take you into the legislation within Lexis Plus. So you can go to that section and see what exactly is said there. Because a big part of using generative AI is being able to actually verify the responses. So we try to make that really transparent and clear. Yeah, and you can start off with like a prompt like this, get a response, and then you might, yeah, maybe, yeah, you mentioned contraband, right? So
Yeah.
maybe we could specifically like have a follow-up prompt where we ask if that's covered in those arrest powers. So it could be something like, would such arrest powers um, under that section, would it be someone is like suspected
Of
of,
bringing drugs into the prison.
yeah, so bringing drugs into a prison. Yeah, and with the follow-up prompting, you don't need to repeat the whole scenario again. It is going to kind of look at the context of that conversation you've had with the AI so far. And yeah, you can actually ask specific questions like this as well.
That's a bit easier to use, isn't it, than normal research where you kind of have to go click, click, click through to the commentary and find the bit. You can just go, so this is really handy if you're on a PDLA call. You
Or
should
just
be
you've got
able
a
to just find
client,
it.
yeah, you've got a client on the phone and you just want to be able to give them the answer really quickly rather than having to go through and go Corrections Act and then find the Act section and read through it, etc. So this will tell us whether or not bringing drugs into the prison means a corrections officer can arrest you.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Before if you were really specific where you mentioned drugs, they might not be it might not mention ex drugs exactly in the legislation, but with generative AI, we'll kind of look at the general legal principles that are involved too. Yeah, and then so this is just, I guess that like an idea around that first example you had where you get that call um, from the client around, being arrested at the prison, wondering whether they can they've got the ability to arrest them, the corrections officers. And at this point, like say if you're ready to move on to something else, so maybe we're done with looking into this issue on our platform and other generative AI products. You're probably familiar if you've been using them, but we talk about conversations. So at this point, I'd start a new conversation, takes us back to the beginning, and we can move on to that next task or next kind of scenario that we're looking into. Your conversations get stored in this list of conversations over on the left, so you can go back and access those prior conversations, see the prompts, see the responses that were provided.
Okay, Annabelle,
Great.
do you want to deal with the midday chaos?
Okay. So you get to back to your office, let's say after you've been to court for the morning, and then you've got some new disclosure, which you need to have a quick read of. So we suggested using, say we're really close to trial, although it's unheard of getting last minute disclosure before trial, but say we get last minute disclosure, can I upload 2 new witness statements and get AI to identify inconsistencies and contradictions to give me a list of differences I can use for cross-examination. So, Drew, you've got some example witness statements there, don't you?
Yeah, yep. And yeah, that's where, so instead of doing it in this ask legal question task, we'll jump to that upload task. And this is where you can upload documents, do things like compare and contrast and so on. So with your example, we could browse and find those witness statements we have and upload them. And with the PDF upload, it doesn't have to be text readable PDFs. They can be scans and it does the character recognition as you upload them. So you'd kind of upload whatever documents you want to analyze. And like what we did before, you'd enter in a prompt to kind of analyze these documents. So Yeah, we could say something like, please compare these two witness statements. And you can be specific. So you don't have to just say compare these two witness statements. You can kind of give it some context to understand what you need to use them for. So we could say, and identify any inconsistencies or contradictions. And we'll leave, I've not done so well with the spelling, but and again, if you've been using generative AI, you're probably familiar, you don't really, it helps just to leave less chance for the AI to misinterpret anything, but it will be able to understand that, what words I was actually trying to mean.
So it's like Google when it goes, did you mean blah
Yeah,
blah?
and it'll kind of do that all behind the scenes. Sort
Yeah.
of, it's gotten to the point where it's smart enough to know what we're meaning.
Yes.
Um, so let's just add a little bit more. So I'll go between them, and then I'll just give it some background of what I need it for. I'm looking for differences I can use in cross-examination. Yeah, so you enter in your prompt, press enter, and Protégé is going to look at those two documents, look at your prompt, look at what you've asked it to do, and yeah, try to highlight any of those inconsistencies or contradictions between them. And you might want to kind of see the documents alongside the response, so you can do that as well. You've got this option to view uploaded documents, and you can see those documents, whatever they are, alongside kind of the analysis that you've been doing on the platform.
And can you scroll down so we can see what it came up with in terms of, so in summary, the inconsistencies include the point of entry and exit, the item carried. So that's reasonably accurate and helpful, isn't it? Those are the inconsistencies. So it's done that pretty well.
Yeah, and some of it might be like an additional check, you
Yeah.
probably already kind of analyzed the documents, and then you could use a tool like this to, check I haven't missed out on anything
Yeah,
in the
or a
documents.
starting point, and then you go and look for the rest of it yourself. But these are short statements. That seems to have got the main inconsistencies, so that's pretty good.
So
Yeah,
do
and
those
then
statements are in PDF, but would this work with a Word document as well, or does it have to just be PDF?
yeah, that's right. We'll work with Word documents as well. If I when I go back to the previous page, you'll see the different when you upload it lists the different types. It'd be like PDF, Word, or even TXT um, is available.
Okay.
And there's also
And,
a free text field too, where you can just type text into if you just or paste text into to analyze.
okay. And then when we finish reading this late disclosure, we assess that perhaps that there's identification evidence that the Crown are wanting to lead in trial, which is coming up, and perhaps it's unreliable, inadmissible. So can we get it to draft an angry letter to the Crown saying this is inadmissible, and talking about the perhaps any contrast between what their evidence is and the rules of evidence set out in the Evidence Act?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few different ways of doing it. You could kind of put that all into a prompt. You could potentially like take parts of the analysis and use that as context when you're drafting too. So maybe I'll just copy this for now. And
Yeah.
if I go new conversation, go back. And that's where when you're kind of focusing in on drafting, you'd want to go to the specific drafting task. So I'll go to generate a draft. And yeah, we could start entering in like the prompt to generate that letter you were looking for. So would it be to the Crown that you'd be
Yes.
drafting it to?
Yeah.
So I'll say draft a letter. And yeah, with the prompting, you just make it clear what type of draft you're expecting, whether it's a letter or an email. That's an important part of the prompt. So I'll go draft a letter to the Crown, arguing that the identification evidence in the robbery charge is unreliable and should not be admitted. I might, do you think that's okay for now? I might not sort of put in a lot of detail. Is there anything else specific you want to add on?
I think let's see what it comes up with.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point because you can always do follow-up prompts to kind of refine it further. And what I'll do, I'll just say, I just want to kind of add that context of that analysis we just did as well. So I'll go, here is the analysis of the witness statements. And yeah, this is where you could kind of paste in that context and as it's generating that letter, so just press enter to run the prompt. So it's taking into consideration that prompt around we're asking it to draft a letter, and we've also provided that context that we just did when we analyze those two witness statements.
Yeah.
And with the drafting, we talk about it being that first draft, where it kind of puts it together mostly. But yeah, it's just remembering it's that first draft that you take away and adjust further.
So here we go, what it's come up with. The following inconsistencies.
I'll just drag it down a bit.
The following inconsistencies between the witness statements highlight the unreliability of the EG. It's not bad. It's a bit like having a junior do it, and you might tutor a little bit with what they've done.
Yeah.
But they've done the most of it for you.
Yeah, and that's where, like for further edits, there's this drafting mode which is open right now, so you can just kind of adjust things and click in, and edit things as you need to.
So you can use the drafting mode, then can you ask AI to refer to its own analysis?
You can do things like you could do a whole kind of follow-up prompt to redraft this whole letter. You could say include a section, stressing that or recommending the evidence is not reliable.
Yeah. Does anyone
If
else feel like you're talking to a human? So you feel like going, that's good, but can
mm,
you also, you don't want to hurt its feelings, but can you also make it and cover this? Because you can just put the next thing in, can't you?
yeah, exactly.
Please
And
add
you can
in, blah, blah.
Yeah, and you can do so that's one way you could kind of refine it. You can actually just refine certain paragraphs. So let's say um, this part, you can actually highlight that text, and then you've got this drafting tools option where you could, let's say, soften tone. You've got a few different
Oh,
options. So I'll go soften tone, and it
probably
just redrafts that
a lot.
paragraph as opposed to the whole document again.
That's good. We're also being asked, is Protege able to interpret handwriting, like handwritten police notes?
So with the PDF upload, it is doing character recognition. I think it is mainly designed on like readable text, but I think it will kind of work generally with handwriting too, depending on how close it is. Does that sound about right, Alistair?
Yeah, I've just put in particular for handwritten notes, it probably won't pick up the handwritten note, but image
Hmm.
based, so if it's been scanned into and it's fairly clear handwriting, scanned into a PDF, as you will be able to do using other software, conversion software, it should be able to pick that up that way. But if it was just a sort of handwritten note, specifically without any OCR functionality, then
But you know, you can always ring police and demand they send a typed up version.
there you
Because,
go.
like, you have to do when you can't read their writing. You say, please send us a typed one.
Oh,
So
good to know.
yeah.
Um,
With that letter, Drew, so you know
yeah.
how we got the analysis and then went into draft a letter, but can you turn the analysis that you had straight into a letter rather than going into draft a letter?
Yeah, not at the moment, but I believe that's something on the roadmap. Alistair, did you sort of have an idea of when that's expected? That idea of where you could go straight from the analysis of those witness statements and convert that into a draft?
So upload to draft is definitely functionality that we've been hearing a lot about and feedback that we get from customers. This is at this current stage, it would be like early next year where we'd be looking to enhance the drafting functionalities as part of that. here's your upload initially of the witness statements, and now I want to draft straight after that. At this stage, workaround or the way Drew has currently showed it is the way it would sort of apply to current practices.
Drew, can you just scroll back up a bit and
Yeah, sure. I'll just quickly insert this back into the document, that updated paragraph. And oh yeah, which part did you want to go to?
so even just like changing, say, the client's name and things, you can just type that straight into this drafting mode.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can sort of do the manual edits as well. So I could kind of, yeah, and it depends how kind of close you want to get this draft to within this environment, within Protege. But you can do all those manual edits.
And then is it as easy as sort of downloading this into a Word document, putting it on a letterhead and sending it off? Or
Yeah, exactly.
can you upload like a blank letterhead and have it there so that it automatically goes on to your letterhead?
The first option, I'll show you how it looks when you download it. You can't sort of do that second option where you sort of transfer this to your own, but it
No.
could be, yeah, maybe what you could do instead is kind of like highlight the parts you want and then copy it into your letterhead separately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that option. So nothing's stopping you from kind of like highlighting it and copying, pasting it. And then there's also up the top this download option where you can download that first draft into a Word document, which, you know, you can just edit further in that Word environment, which you might be more comfortable with. So yeah, and from there you could kind of paste it into your letterhead as well, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
And then can we say to it, suggest to the Crown that they withdraw the charges?
Yeah, you could. So to do that, you would, as a follow-up prompt, just put in add a part to the letter which, you know, stresses or which suggests to the Crown
That in
to,
light of the above, given that none of their evidence is admissible, we suggest they withdraw, something like that.
exactly. You just put it in as like a whole follow-up prompt, and it would
Yeah.
regenerate the letter and include that extra part in the letter.
Do you want to do that and see what it says, what it comes
Yeah.
up with?
So I add it on. So I'll go add the part to the letter, or add a part to the letter, which so would it be like something like which suggests withdrawal or reconsideration of evidence?
Not that's
the
different.
charge.
To say
yeah.
withdrawal or dismissal of or offering no evidence on the charges. We're
Okay.
suggesting the Crown withdraw or offer no evidence.
Oh, so would it be okay to add it onto the same letter, or would it be like a whole new letter?
No, add it to the letter,
Yeah.
basically saying in light of the above, we suggest on a principled basis that the Crown withdraw.
Yeah. So I'll just do that. So add a part at the end which suggests withdrawal,
Or offer no evidence.
or offer no evidence on the charges. Yeah. And with those types of follow-up prompts, it is going to kind of regenerate the whole letter again, so it can take some time. So maybe we'll it'll just take, because it's instead of just redrafting that whole paragraph, it's going to do the whole letter again.
But I guess the thing is you can sort of look at it paragraph by paragraph, just like we would, like Annabelle said, with a junior, and go, make this more soft and make this more, stern, or delete this, add this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of the drafting capabilities. And yeah, it kind of shows you how you could do some analysis, take that analysis out, switch to the drafting mode and use that as context to generate a specific draft that you're looking for. And again, like any conversations that we've been having with Protege, just get added to that list of conversations so we can go back and view that analysis or view those prior conversations.
Okay, and when it's answering questions, it's got access to all of LexisNexis's database commentary complete case law database?
Yeah, it's across those different content types. So for example, maybe if I go back to that first conversation we had with Protege around the arrest powers, if I was to go view related materials, this should give you an idea of the different like types of LexisNexis content that it's going to be leveraging. So it could be case law, could be the legislation which we have in our system, practical guidance content as well. And yeah, and then the secondary materials, which would be elements of legal commentaries and publications as on our database. So things like the laws of New Zealand, criminal law publications, sentencing publications, kind of referenced as part of formulating that response.
Yeah. Okay.
Drew, if we move on to sort of afternoon madness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was that midday madness.
That was midday madness.
I thought the day was done now.
That's what we did instead of lunch, and now it's onto the
Yeah.
afternoon Samudu.
Now we've got afternoon madness and sentencing prep. So I've got a client we need to draft sentencing submissions and write to the client about a burglary. It's a first offence and the burglary was done at night. There's no confrontation with occupants, nobody's injured, and most of the property's been recovered. So I want to know what type of sentence my client will be looking at. And there's two reasons for this. One is I want to write a letter to my client so that he or she's aware of what they're looking at. So they're not freaking out and packing their toothbrush before they come to the sentencing. And secondly, I want the research so that I can use that for sentencing submissions. So how would we go about that on Protege?
Yeah, sure. And you'd probably start with the ask a legal question task. And it can help with those like scenarios where there's lots involved. Instead of thinking about that perfect prompt, you can just kind of start laying out the facts of that kind of scenario, that piece of work that you're or that task that you're working on. So you could do something like, my client is due for sentencing. You can lay it out as separate sentences that might be a bit more manageable as opposed to just trying to, do one massive sentence. So I'll go, my client is due for sentencing. It's his first offense. And then put in all the details. He broke into a house at night, let's say, but no one was there, or no one was injured, rather. What are some other facts?
Most of the property was recovered.
Yeah.
He's a first offender.
Oh, yep, I've got that.
Sorry, you've got that. And I guess what I'm looking for is sentencing guidelines, case law.
So I'll put in there I need to advise him on what sentence to expect. Can you give me an overview of the likely sentencing range for a first time burglary? And you can like add a lot of details, specific things you're looking for. So you could say something like including any relevant sentencing guidelines or bans and the key aggravating or mitigating factors the judge will consider. Is that enough for now, do you reckon?
Way more than what I would
yeah.
AI, but I guess the more you give, the better answer it's going to give, right?
Yeah, and some of it's like specifying how you want the response to appear. And you can it depends how much time you have.
So if you press enter, this now re-asks the question in a way that AI can understand it.
It'll do all of that kind of hard work behind the scenes. So there's less thinking about, okay, I need to use this specific key term and this, connector. It's, you can use natural language like we've done, and it will kind of formulate a response based on that. And again, it follows that process of, how we were talking about the content types before. in the LexisNexis database using case law, legislation, legal commentary, practical guidance content as the basis of creating a response.
Okay, so it's just giving us the case law.
Yeah, so it's taking into the specifics of what we mentioned in the prompt around, it was at night, it's a first time offender. So it's considering all of those factors when it's responding. And yeah, you'll see those links through to relevant case law that it's cited.
So if you click on that link, will it take you straight to the case rather than
Yeah,
having to look at the case again or search it separately?
exactly. Yeah. So, and some people like to just click onto it and navigate back. You can also kind of right click and open it in a new tab. And because you might want to like have some other content open instead of just looking at Protege. So you could open it in a new tab, which would take you into that case in our database. And yeah, if you're familiar with LexisNexis products, right now we're in case base. You can see things like cases referring to this case, litigation history. You can get to the NZLR, the reported judgment from here, get to the full judgment if you need to.
Okay. Can you go back to the search? I just want to see what it says about the aggravating and mitigating factors. So
Oh, yep. Yeah, if we scroll down.
the fact that it's a burglary at night, which heightens the distress caused to victims, and then it's obviously got the case.
Yeah.
So what if I now want to just send a letter to my client? I want this information turned into a letter. So I sort of say to the client, hey, this is what you're looking at. How would you do that from this search?
Yeah, sure. And so with this task, you can actually switch into drafting from here. So as a follow-up prompt, um, that's where we just it's tell Protege to draft something based on this response. So would it be a letter that or an email or
Oh, let's say email.
yeah,
I like emails rather than letters. So draft an email to my client,
yeah.
advising him of the likely outcome at sentencing. I can see that there's some suggested follow-up questions as well. So this is AI telling us some other narrower questions we can ask, I guess.
Yeah, yep. It's kind of looking at that question you asked in the response, and then it's as you said, it's coming up with ideas around potential follow-up prompts. And you can kind of look at these in two ways. It could be maybe these are relevant to what you're wanting to do some more research on or get some more specifics on. Other times they just kind of think about ways you can structure prompts as well to think, and then you could kind of use the same format to ask some relevant question that you're looking into.
Okay. So draft an email to my client advising him of the likely outcome at sentencing.
Yeah, and was there anything you wanted to say about like the tone or anything particular about that, or would that be okay just as a first draft?
Let's see how that comes up as a first draft, and then we can look at how to
Yeah,
the tone.
sure. So I'll just press enter again to run that follow-up prompt. And yeah, like the other follow-up prompts we're doing, it will consider, I'm not having to repeat everything. It's going to consider the context of the conversation, that initial response, and then kind of package it up into that first draft of an email to the client.
So you can do that straight from the ask a question as opposed to having to go back to draft a document.
Yeah, it's just with the upload task currently, where that's a bit different.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see. Okay.
yeah,
So it's just because that was comparing two documents, whereas this is coming from the information in your database already.
exactly. Yeah, that's the difference at the moment.
Um,
Yeah.
so it just says, I'm writing to provide you with an overview of the likely outcome at your upcoming sentencing. Based on similar cases, the starting point is likely to be between 12 to 18 months imprisonment. Okay. If I read this and go, oh, my client's going to freak out, I need to kind of soften this a little bit. Is there a way to change the tone in the email, in the letter or email?
Yeah, you could do as a whole follow-up or to the whole email, you could go soften tone like we did before in the prompt box down there. And then yeah, there might be certain parts you want to soften. Let's just say this part here. You could select it, or you could select, multiple paragraphs, and that's where you get this option to soften the tone, it reformats that paragraph or that set of text that you've chosen to soften the tone. And then you will see it, and then you can insert it back into the document after that. So it's changed it, and then I can go replace in document. It puts it back into the document there.
Can you just highlight a paragraph there? So you can soften, what are the generic drafting ones there? So these soften,
Yeah.
be more assertive, and convert to plain language.
Yeah, and it will be different based on what kind of document you've got open. Like if it was a transactional sort of document, there might be like expand or simplify. I think there will be convert to plain language too. So those will sort of differ based on what kind of letter or email or draft that you've got open.
Okay. And then obviously, just looking at a question. So here we've only sort of done a generic, look, this is a, sentencing. So if we wanted to look at something specific, like a discharge without conviction, or we're specifically looking at home detention as opposed to imprisonment, would we just include that in the initial prompt? So rather than give me sentencings for a burglary, we'd say give me sentencings where a discharge without conviction has been granted. So that
Yeah,
narrows it down.
that's right. Yeah. And then it kind of would be more tailored to what you're actually looking for. And yeah, as we talked about before, there is also that kind of approach where sometimes you might just want to add that part in manually, potentially, which you can do just on screen there.
Okay. And then again, like before, you just download this or copy and paste it onto a letterhead or an email and send it off to the client.
Yeah, that same process. Yeah, and with an email, you might just potentially, you know, copy the body of it potentially.
Yeah.
Because you might probably have your own signature and stuff in the email, so you could just copy out the body and paste it in as that first draft to modify further.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. That's afternoon sentencing prep madness. Annabelle, what's on the list after that?
Then we thought we'd get to the evening and perhaps be looking at getting back to some of that pile of disclosure that you need to get through. Wondered if we could say we give a certain number of police documents to it, like a forensic log, police incident report, and a police interview. Could we feed that into it and then get it to do a timeline or a chronology?
Yeah, so so if we go back to that upload task, and yeah, and with the upload task, you can drag and drop, you can browse like we did before, or just browse for like some other sample files that we have. So yeah, let's say we've got these three PDFs here. So I'll upload them. And right now they're just uploading. Once they're finished, we can enter in a prompt. With chronologies and timelines, because this is to do with kind of event on one day, it might not it is just all to do with the same day. The chronologies feature is more for like events, multiple kind of over a long period of time. But just to show you how you'd kind of enter in that type of prompt, you could just go generate a timeline. You can be specific too with those types of prompts. You could say generate a timeline of events based on James Carter's account of the events in that interview. So you can input those types of prompts. But I think it might just not do that well with this type of scenario because it's all to do with just events on one particular day.
Alistair, it obviously says you can upload 10 documents at a time.
Yes.
If so, a lot of the files we have more than 10 PDF documents. So is
Sure.
there a plan, while Drew types out his questions, is there a plan for this to include either bigger file sizes or more documents?
More options.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great question. So we are working on releasing a feature functionality under the upload task, which we're calling vaults, which will allow users to upload 500 documents at a time. Users will get access to about 20 vaults at this stage. So each user can have 20 vaults full of 500 documents. That should help hopefully negate some of those, 10 documents. And the thinking behind vaults is all around, working with a case and you don't want to continually upload documents, because if Drew hasn't touched upon it, here within the upload functionality, we delete any of the files after 10 minutes of an active session. So they're completely purged from our servers. They're completely encrypted and secure, but they do get deleted. So each time you may have to, and Drew may be able to show you this as well, at the end of the conversation, you'll see your prompt and the generated response, but you won't have access to those files that you have. Now with Vaults,
When's the rollout for 500 documents as opposed to 10?
so at the moment we're looking at Q4 2025. So before the end of the year is the likeliest likelihood of Vaults rolling out.
Cool. Let's see the summary.
Yeah, and this will kind of be a little bit of a timeline too, because it's going to take into consideration the times in the event. So yeah, I've just put in a prompt, summarize the incident at the bar using all 3 documents, because that's what these police reports are about. And yeah, we'll look in the documents, summarize events kind of leading up to what's happened across the documents. It'll do, at the end, it'll do some comparison across them too. So yeah, and that's where it will be considering the time of the day in these particular responses anyway, when you're summarizing things.
So it's summarized police incident, summarized forensic log, and summary the incidents. Golden physical altercation. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
like the other earlier scenario around the witness statements, you can kind of view the documents alongside the analysis, things like the interview transcript and other details or other documents that you have uploaded. And then you can kind of like pick it apart and ask specific questions. With something like, what would you be typically wanting to look for, like contradictions or inconsistencies or those sorts of things between statements?
It depends, but say what I was thinking at this point is you're just reading and you're trying to get your head around it. So can it put it into a timeline or chronology and then just give us a good assessment of what we're looking at that actually happened first?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be kind of that, I guess, that summary to start off with.
But could we get it to go, put it all, well, we haven't given it enough dates in this one, but say
Yeah.
there was a whole bunch of dates scattered through it, the document, could you then say put it all in order of time?
Yeah, maybe I'll just show you, these kind of aren't criminal law documents, but I'll just show you with some other documents kind of what that would look like if it was across multiple dates. So I'll just quickly upload that and get it to make like a timeline of events out of those documents.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are particular documents which span over a large period of time, like multiple days. And yeah, this is an example where you could actually generate a full timeline of events based on it. These are quite big PDFs. I might just do one of them for now. And that's where you could use that timeline feature. So I just click generate a timeline and it's going to create a timeline of events based on those uploaded documents. And one thing to do with the upload task, I'm not sure if we've discussed it yet, but on our system, there's this privacy by design approach. So any of your uploaded documents are just used for the purpose of responding to your prompts or analysis. They're just stored on the system for 10 minutes, after which they're purged out. Here's what a timeline would look like, just to give you an idea of you kind of uploading some documents and say generate a timeline. It would appear in this type of format. If I just go back to that analysis of the those police documents, so you can go back into it as long as it's within 10 minutes of an active conversation, you can get back into it and continue prompting. So just to show you one more example, maybe just to get you thinking of the ways you can use this upload task, you could put in prompts like this where you say, identify any statements by Carter that could be used to show lack of intent to injure. It will look through those uploaded documents and try to surface suggested language or content from those documents that suggests that. So it's looked in that interview statement. It's tried to find, parts of that interview that might, suggest it was an accident and not intent. So yeah, those are just an extra prompt to get for you to think about ways you can analyze uploaded documents.
Okay. So that would get to the end of our evening work. Now, are we allowed to sleep, Samuda?
Yeah.
No, we've got
Keep
one
working through the
more.
night.
We've got a really quick summary of the case that we just need to look at because it's late in the day and we just don't have the brain power to actually read a case. So we're just going to have a look at the summarize a case function. So Drew, there was a recent case on name suppression called Alvarez Riveros. Now, all I know is that it was sometime last month. I don't have the citation on hand, and I just want to know what the Supreme Court said. How would I go about just getting a brief summary?
Yeah, and it kind of depends. If you knew the exact citation, you could jump straight to the summarize a case task.
It's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
so
just know the name. That's all I know, and I know it was recent.
yeah, and that's where like Protege is quite good with those types of things where you like remember, oh, what was that case to do with Air New Zealand and employment law or something, and you don't actually have all the details. So you could say something like, what was the recent Supreme Court case to do with name suppression and someone named Alvarez, let's say. And yeah, we'll try to figure out what that case is, surface the case to us, and from there you can actually summarize it straight from this conversation, or maybe I'll just show you how you use that summarize a case task separately too. So here's the case that it's found for us.
Yeah. In the citation there, it's obviously
Yeah.
called something else because there were a couple of interested parties. So
Yeah.
now that I've got the citation, obviously I can go straight into the case from the link, right?
Yeah, that's right. You could click onto it. Yep.
It's too late in the day and I don't want
Yeah.
to make a judgment. I just want to know, I just want bullet point highlights. So how would I get Protege to just highlight and tell me what the court said in this?
Yeah, so there's kind of two ways. One, the natural way of doing it would just be to summarize case law authority as a follow-up prompt to this conversation. But I'll just show you that would be the one way. But let's say I already have that citation. I would just go straight to that summarize a case task, put in the citation that I have. With this prompt, you don't need with this task, you don't need to put in a prompt. You can just paste in the citation just to save time. And yeah, Protege will find that case in our database and generate an AI generated summary of the case. If this case had been reported on, it will just kind of give you the head note from that law report series as opposed to creating an AI generated summary because we've prioritized human editorials where available.
And is it, so with the summarize a case function, it's only one case that it can summarize it at a time?
Oh, if it was back in the other conversation, and say if a response had cited multiple cases, like that sentencing.
No, sorry. This function, the summarize a case box, this we're only dealing with summarizing one case at a time, as opposed to like commentary on a particular point.
That's right, just with this particular task.
So like here, I'm not wanting to know everything about name suppression. I just want to know what the court said in this case only.
That's right. Yep. And might sometimes mention, what was referenced in this case, like it referenced this particular case. Yeah, and like this, for example, it talked about distinguished from leading cases and so on.
Scroll
Yeah,
down a bit. Just want to see what the
yeah.
decision. It says it was dismissed, and then the reason for the judgment. Just kind of gives it to you in 3 bullet points.
Yeah, and the AI generated summaries just share the same sort of format, so they're really easy to just kind of pick up from each case to the next. And then yeah, like you were talking about before, that underlying case is there to actually jump into and get to the full text. If you want to actually go to the full text, maybe the next day after you've had a sleep. Yeah.
So last question from me there is just a question on what Protege gets this information is purely the LexisNexis database, right? So it's not getting it from Google. It's not going to give us cases that don't exist. This is coming from your database. So the cases are, you should be able to just click on it and link straight away.
That's right. Yeah, everything's linked through to our database. So yeah, whenever you input a prompt and ask something of Protege, it's going back to the LexisNexis database, checking citations. Yeah, and it's just surfacing cases from our database, not going out to the internet and making anything up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alistair, might go back to you, and I think you've been answering most of the questions while we've been going, but I'm not sure if anybody's got questions. Type away now, and otherwise Alistair might have a few questions to go through.
Yeah, thanks. I do have one that I wanted to address. So Chris Hunt asked if drafting, sorry, just up. Can Protege draft documents with references to external websites? Example, could it draft a letter to the prosecution manager at PPS to argue for a review of diversion? And would Protege be able to use the police diversion policy on its website? So currently, Protege in its current state won't be able to access outside or external references like external websites, like police diversion policy. But we are releasing a feature update to Protege, which is Protege General AI, which has broader and more expanded use cases that allow it to draft those documents with external web references to it as well. I do have a question in the Q&A as well from William. Can my prompt be read or explained to me like I'm 5 years old, and would that provide a concise, simple summary, or are there some risks with that approach? William, if you're asking about general prompts or being a simple summary of those simple prompts, then you could simplify it. We do offer prompt training to ask Protege as detailed or give Protege as much details as possible. I don't think it would be a great approach to try and simplify it down to quite simple language and then ask it. It's fairly legally tuned in that sense.
I have to go back into court now, but I've got just two listener questions, watcher, subscriber questions. One is about privacy and information. If we're uploading clients' personal information to the program, is that retained by the program? What are the safeguards in place? Should we be getting consent from clients to use their personal information? Are you able to answer that?
So we don't save any information from user prompts or anything within that. If you've got client information in this prompts as well as within the upload task, everything is deleted after the first 10 minutes of an active session. I would still suggest that the user reviews that and considers their own discretion when putting in client information. And maybe you have to discuss that with clients as well.
Okay, that will have to do for me. Thank you, Samudu. You can take over.
I'll take over. To be fair, I think that's is that everything, Alistair, in terms of questions that we had?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you both, Alistair and Drew, for your time, and to LexisNexis for this webinar. We hope that you've learned some practical tips on how to use Protege and how that will hopefully make life easier, save some time, and save lots of reading and research. If you do want to get in touch with the LexisNexis team, I think all of the information is going to be emailed through, like I said at the beginning, and I'm sure somebody will get in touch with you to sort out subscriptions or questions, training, and anything else.
Awesome.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Samudu and Annabelle.
Pleasure.
Thanks.